Yes, I'll get you a coffee, but your laptop order goes back to the bottom of the pile, by user Fluffy Cake. TLDR, by popular request, guys couldn't handle female tech, manager joined in on misogyny. Gave them all coffee, withheld manager's new laptop. Delivered laptop 4 months later. In the early 90s I worked for an international airline company in the IT department as desktop support. I was the first woman in IT for that company, and most companies in my country back then. The company was located at an international airport and the company was housed in many buildings and airplane hangars spread across and around the airport. The buildings I serviced were mainly the hangars meant for airplane maintenance. Every 6 weeks we would order all the IT equipment that was requested, stuff like specialized printers, computers, terminals, etc. My job was to take the equipment, set it up and have the person responsible for said equipment to sign off on it. If it wasn't signed off for whatever reason, the equipment came back with me, would be returned to the vendor and had to be reordered by the department. Being a woman in her early 20s, in a male-oriented profession and dealing mostly with airplane maintenance men, I had to deal with a lot of shit and misogyny. From snickering men having set up their computers I was supposed to service, with hardcore porn screensavers to men refusing to let me touch their computers and demanding I get a male colleague to do it. Most of the time I just pretended not to have seen or heard what was going on, finish setting up their hardware, have it signed if and leave. Until that one day I just had enough of their bullshit. That day I had a trolley with me stacked with a bunch of printers and one laptop. Back then only management got a laptop and if one was delivered it was kind of a big deal. Remember, I'm talking about the Windows 3.11 era. I walked into the airplane hangar with my stacked cart, setting up printers throughout while a team of airplane maintenance dudes were servicing a cargo plane. The minute I walked in there was catcalling, whistling, and "Hey baby, where you going with all that heavy equipment?" As usual I ignored them and just plowed on so I could get TF out of there. When I was done with the printers I had to go find this manager who had ordered the laptop and set it up for him. Airplane hangars are weird places. It seemed to be one giant space with some glass offices just off the side, but it does have all these nooks and crannies that seem to be nothing, but are actually small offices or storage spaces. It's hard to find the right place to be sometimes. So I walk up to a bunch of maintenance guys that are just about to take a break and ask them where I can find MR. Manager dude, when one of them goes, "Hey baby, you done with all the heavy stuff? I'd like a black coffee with sugar and my colleague here wants an espresso." To the 5 or 6 other guys this was hilarious and they started shooting off how they wanted their coffees. One of them actually brought out a tray and handed it to me telling me to be quick about it. I'd about had enough and a thundercloud must have been forming around my head because MR. Manager guy, I assumed, because he was, wearing a suit, who just walked around the corner snickers goes, "Ah, what's up sweetie, got your period?" Of course this was heartily laughed at by all the other guys. I asked Mr. Manager guy if he wanted coffee too and which kind. I can't remember what kind it was, but I took my cart with the laptop on it, drive it to the coffee machine, made all the coffees, drive it back over and handed everyone their coffee order. When I handed MR. Manager guy his coffee he said, "Okay honey, let's go, I'll show you my office so you can set up my new laptop." I looked him in the eye, smiled and told him I can't, as I'm late for my next appointment with all the coffee orders, I really have to run. Unfortunately your laptop will have to be returned and you will have to reorder one. So I will see you in 6 weeks. Bye. Of course he tried to tell me he really needed that laptop now, and the coffee thing was all in good fun and I shouldn't be so sensitive blah blah blah. When I just kept on walking with my cart it turned ugly pretty soon. I was *TCH and he was going to have me fired. Did I have any idea who he was etc.? I just silently chucked everything in the car and drive off with him screaming after me. He did try to get me fired, but my manager had my back and made sure his reorder was delayed a few times to teach him a lesson. When I finally delivered his laptop 4 months later he was very respectful though. Unfortunately it wasn't the last time I had to deal with this kind of shit. Edit, grammar. Edit to the edit, holy shirtballs this is cool, smiley face. I posted at 2 AM, went to bed and all you amazing PPL are here with my morning coffee, smiley face. Thank you all for the kind words, it's so much appreciated. You rock. Ooh, and my first Reddit gold and plat. Thank you very much kind strangers. Also, not a native speaker, so forgive my grammar. Also, I hate apostrophes, I let autocorrect handle that shit and it doesn't do a very good job. No calls and I can't leave the floor? Okay, bye user quicks a quirk. TL.DR at bottom. This story harkens back to ye olden days when Blockbuster and Hollywood Video were the things to do on a family-friendly Friday, and cell phones were still something most people didn't really consider necessary, aka the 90s. I took a job at a video store near my house. It was a small family-owned store with 3 different branches in town. The job was wonderful. I loved movies and games. It was close to my residence and school. I even got free video rentals and a discount from the sub shop next door. The video store was located in a beautiful old building from the 1920s. It had marble stairs and a really amazing cage elevator that lead up to the storage and employee lounge. The job was perfect for me. The hours were flexible, the pay was decent, but the one drawback to this was my supervisor. Let's call her Amanda, because that was her name. Seriously, screw Amanda. Amanda was on the older side and seemed to not be content with how her life had turned out. As a result, she took all of her frustrations out on anyone she could, especially those people who she worked with who happened to be younger. If you were a college student like myself, you earned a special extra helping of disdain from her. I mean, really, how dare you decide to actually have aspirations of making more than $7.50 an hour? While I'm generally fairly tolerant of people like Amanda, she really went the extra mile to annoy me as much as humanly possible. She was bitter, mean, petty, and did anything and everything she could to just be plain unpleasant. She wasn't even nice to customers. The only upside to this attitude was that she didn't let Karen customers get away with their Karen-ness. I might have been able to take more if she happened to be particularly knowledgeable or good at her job. She was neither and only appeared to have the job because of good old nepotism. She was the daughter-in-law of the owner. She knew nothing about movies, or games, or gaming systems, or anything we rented or sold. When a customer had a question, she would pawn them off on another employee. When she had a problem with the computers, who did she call to fix it? Me. When there was a delivery that needed to be checked into the system, who did she call? Me. When stock needed to be dragged up to the stock room, that'd be me again. Any unpleasant task that came up, she would always try to give it to me. Generally, she hid in the back watching TV or talking on the phone, which did tie up the store's landline for literally hours, or doing anything and everything she could to avoid doing her actual job. When I brought up Amanda to Ken, the owner, he simply sighed and gave a pained look and asked me to just try to bear with it and stay out of her way if I could. I got the distinct impression that Ken didn't much care for her either, but she was his daughter-in-law. He did his best to try to make sure I wasn't scheduled to work with her, but at least once a week, I had to work with this paragon of kindness and light. One day, I was on the phone with a customer discussing the late fees on their account when Amanda wanted to make a call. This resulted in Amanda ripping me a new one in front of an entire store of people. It was a Saturday and we were packed to the rafters. She was yelling so loudly that the woman on the phone asked me if we were being robbed and whether she should call the police. Before I could answer, Amanda yanked the phone out of my hand and slammed it into the cradle. "You are never ever to be on that phone, you understand me?" While I was desperately aching to headbutt her, I bit my tongue, took a deep breath, counted to 10. When that didn't work, I counted to 20, then 50. Instead of telling her I hoped that she'd be ravaged by rabid wolverines, I simply smiled and said, "All right." This seemed to annoy her even more than if I'd gotten angry. She stormed back to the office and I took a stream of customers, all of whom asked me if I was okay and one offered suggestions on how to dispose of a body. I appreciated the suggestions, but I had plenty of my own ideas, and while evisceration with a pair of rusty safety scissors might be a fulfilling immediate solution, it probably wasn't good for my lifetime goals, unless those goals involved a jail cell and becoming overly acquainted by a thick woman with one eyebrow named Big Betty. Instead, I checked it off in my big book of voodoo curses and hoped I would have a chance to pay Amanda back for her thoughtful gesture of embarrassing me in front of half of the metropolitan area. Still, there were a few more pieces to be laid out for my malicious compliance, and Amanda wouldn't disappoint me. The next piece came, perhaps a month later. I had been at work for about 7 hours of my 9-hour shift and had only seen Amanda once, and that had been when she left the store. Considering I only had 2 hours left of my shift and hadn't yet taken a break, I really needed to go to the bathroom. I told my coworker I was heading to the restroom. This was, however, apparently, not in keeping with Amanda's view for the universe. She actually began to bang and kick the bathroom door, demanding I come out. I took my time, washed my hands, adjusted my hair, and calmly walked out of the bathroom. While she began to scream, I ignored her and walked up to the front of the store and took the cart of movies to be reshelved. She grabbed the front of the cart and swiped the movies off of the top. She then informed me of my questionable parentage, told me that I liked to passionately hug mothers, and that I was a female dog. Really, I had no idea about any of these things about myself. I thought all that time that I was just your regular everyday college student. I could have probably gotten on television if I had known how unique I was sooner. Amanda told me that under no uncertain terms was I to ever leave the floor while I was on the clock. Again, I summoned an inner calm that would have made Gandhi proud. I forced a smile and nodded, all right. While I seemed calm on the outside, I had made up my mind that I would have my chance. No matter how small, I would have my moment. That shining moment came on a lazy and blissfully quiet morning. As it was a morning, it would just be me and Amanda. Hopefully she would stay in the office and I wouldn't have to deal with her at all. When I came in, there were workmen in the back working on the elevator. One of the guys came up and told me that he needed a part and he would be back tomorrow to finish up the work. Annoying as I would now have to schlep armfuls of heavy tapes up the stairs, but it wasn't the end of the world. The light of my life arrived a few hours later without a word to anyone. I stood at the front putting "Be Kind" rewind stickers on a batch of new arrivals when I noticed Amanda through the back door getting into the elevator. After the man told me that he needed a part, it didn't even occur to me that the elevator had the power on, and I had a moment of amusement at thinking that Amanda was going to have to take the hated stairs. She was, above all, lazy. However, it seemed the elevator did indeed have power and worked. At least it worked just enough to go half a floor and then stop. It was just close enough to the upper floor that climbing out onto that floor was impossible, and just far enough from the lower floor that climbing out was impossible. I couldn't believe my eyes. Malicious compliance activated. I couldn't entirely see Amanda as she tried to open the door and get out, but I could hear her. The sounds of frustration increased until I heard the most beautiful sound I ever heard. Amanda, OP. A slow smile, reminiscent of the Grinch, curved my lips. I walked to the very edge of the sales floor and called out. Yes. Amanda, the elevator is stuck, can you open the door from your side? Me, I don't know, I can't see it from here. Amanda huffed in annoyance. Amanda, well, get over here and try to open it. Me, I can't do that, Amanda. Amanda, why they, enter colorful verbiage here, not. Me, I'm not allowed to leave the floor while I'm on the clock under any circumstances. Amanda, are you, enter another even naughtier word here, kidding me? Me, you said it yourself. Since I value my job, I can't possibly go against orders. A stream of curses came from the locked and stuck elevator. I'm pretty sure I'm still not old enough for all of the things I heard that day. Amanda, call maintenance, the number should be in the office. Trying to sound as innocent and sympathetic as I could possibly manage while also trying not to burst out laughing, I can't do that either, I'd have to leave the floor to go to the office. Amanda, you think you're real, so many naughty words, funny don't you? Me, I don't know what you mean. Amanda, call Ken then. I know you know his number. Me, well I would, but I'm not allowed to use the phone, remember? Amazingly, there were no curses. There were no screams. There was not even one word telling me that my parents were never married. It was silent. I think for the first time she realized that she might actually be in a little trouble. She was stuck in a position entirely of her own making with no way out of it for the foreseeable future. Amanda, OP, please? Just get me out of here. Me, I'm sorry Amanda, I'm just following orders. All pretense of niceness was dropped as she proceeded to inform me of all of my imagined faults and those of my parents, friends, and any other relations I might have or think to have in the future. Then she sealed her fate, she yelled at me that I was fired. In truth, I really only planned on letting her stew for a few minutes, but after that? Nah. Me, I'm fired? Okay, then I guess I'll head home. Oh, I should also let you know that Bill called and said he'd be in at 7 instead of 5. He has to pick up his brother from the airport. So. I guess you'll be in there for a while yet. I hope you've got a book or something. Amanda, what? You, bleeping, bleep. How they, bleep, do you, bleep, think you can, bleeping, do this to me? When I get out of here, I'm going come, bleep, you and your, bleeping, bleep, you, bleep, bleeping, bleeping, bleep. Me, wow. Okay, yeah. Have fun with that, have a good one. I'll leave my name tag and shirt on the front desk. Amanda, wait. Me, bye. Amanda, wait. Me, don't worry, I'll lock up on my way out and I'll put up a sign so people will know we're closed. Amanda, OP wait. I didn't mean it. Come back. I walked up front, wrote out a sign that we were closed until 7 p.m. due to unforeseen circumstances. The very last thing I heard from Amanda before I opened the door was, "But I have to pee." Still snickering to myself, I locked the door and drove the 45 minutes out to Ken's house to let him know the shop was closed. Could I have gone the 5 minutes to my house and called? Sure I could. Did I? Nope. Ken seemed a bit surprised to see me there. Ken, I thought you were working today. Me, oh, I was but Amanda fired me. Ken, she's not allowed to do that. All hiring and firing goes through me, she knows that. Don't worry, I'll call her. I think maybe it's time to talk to my son about her. I can't keep her on with her acting like this. Me, I don't think she'll be able to answer the phone. Ken gave me a long sharp look as I tried very hard not to smile. Then I gave up entirely and just smiled broadly back at him. Ken, OP? Me, yes? Ken, what did you do? Me? I didn't do a thing, I only followed her orders. Ken leaned down to meet me eye to eye. Ken, what happened? I gave him the full tale from her telling me that I couldn't use the phone under any circumstances to her telling me that I wasn't allowed to leave the sales floor when I was on the clock. Then I told him about her being stuck in the elevator. Ken, you didn't tell her the elevator was broken? Me, I didn't even realize it had power. Ken just stood there looking at me gobsmacked and then started laughing. I should really go let her out. He paused for a minute and looked down at his dirty hands and clothes, then up at me. Ken, but I really shouldn't leave those flowers half planted and then I should probably take a shower. I don't want to make that drive covered in dirt. Me, oh of course not. You've got a really nice car and it'd be a lot of work to get that much dirt out of your seats and carpet. Do you need some help with the planting? Ken nodded solemnly back at me and gave another chuckle. It took probably another hour to finish planting the flowers. Ken told me I'd be paid for the day and sent me home with assurances that I did indeed still have a job and that he would deal with Amanda. I fully enjoyed the rest of my half-day off. I did hear from Bill that when he got there the elevator repair guy had just arrived and that Amanda ended up spending about 5 hours stuck in the elevator. After that day, I only ever saw her one more time. She glared daggers at me as I waved happily to her as she carried a bag of her things out to her car. Whenever I think about it, I still get a little smile on my face. Besides, I only did what she told me to. Dr. Sucky manager suffered being trapped for 5 hours because of her poor life choices. I didn't take the Lord's name in vain, by user Psycho Mouse. So, I just had an old Facebook memory pop up and it made me remember a hilarious story, at least to my wife and I anyways. We were dating at the time and decided to go watch a baseball game as a nice date. Well, this happened to be a special baseball game. By around the end of the 4th inning, I'd say there were a good 8 or so foul balls that went into the crowd and audience. After ball 9 I loudly exclaimed. Jesus Christ, cause of the amount of pop flies was insane. This lady, who is 1 row in front of us turns around and says. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. Say anything else but that in a very upset tone of voice. So, not 5 minutes later, there's another fly ball. I shout, loudly shout. Fuck my cunt sideways, another one. She just turned around to face me, gave me a look of pure anger and disgust. She ended up never saying another word to me, she just took off after the game. Not as epic as some people's stories on this sub, but it's a story my wife and I still talk and laugh about to this day, 10 years later. If that's what you really want, Karen, by user available capital 476. Once upon a time I was working a seasonal retail job at a craft store chain. It is important to note that for the purposes of their sales, lighted tree toppers, lighted decorations, string lights, etc., were all separate categories. On this fateful day, lighted tree toppers were on sale for 30% off. The rest of the lighted decor on that aisle was not. The sales were very clearly marked and the sections designated clearly as well as the category printed on the package itself. It is even listed in the email that Karen was using to present her coupon. Karen approaches my register with her tree topper. The register recognizes the discounts and applies them automatically in most instances, this being no exception. The 30% applies itself. Your total will be $18.90. Karen then presents her 20% off coupon. I'm sorry ma'am. This coupon is not applicable to sale items. Those aren't on sale. The lights aren't on sale this week. I show the copy of our sale bulletin on my counter. I apologize for the confusion ma'am. This actually falls under the tree topper category. You'll see here it's 30% off. I won't be able to apply the coupon, but you will be getting the already discounted sale price. I am telling you I don't want any sale. You are going to take my coupon. I should probably mention she was in at least once weekly, yelled about sales and coupons every single time, and then declared she was never coming back. Only to be back the following week to do the same. Ma'am. I would have to manually override the sale price and apply the coupon manually as well. Then do it. I'm telling you it is not on sale and I am using my coupon or I am reporting you. Yes ma'am. If you insist. I got visual confirmation from my supervisor in the way of a hand signal we used to mean, go ahead. She was not too happy when I did exactly as she demanded, and her total came to $21.60. You're stealing from me. I demand to speak to a manager. I'm never coming back here again. My shift supervisor had been on the next register over the whole time to combat the afternoon rush. That's how she managed to give the visual approval in the moment. She took great joy herself in telling Karen, you have the exact discounted price you demanded. You can pay it or leave. Oh, you're never coming back? Do you promise? Karen paid her $21.60 with her head hung. She was back next week. Petty Airport Security Overdoes It, by user Emperor Buttman. My BFF and I travel on a budget and the nameless budget airline in question has a strict one bag, one personal item per person policy when you don't check a suitcase. We're on the return flight out and before they even let us through to the X-ray machines we have a security in our face telling us we're violating policy. We each have one bag and only one of us has a personal item, a tote bag we had on our flight there with the same airline. Man's clearly got a problem and when I cite the actual policy he insists it's a baggage item. So I do what any normal person would do, don the bathrobe and cat-themed neck pillow, only items in the bag, fold up the tote and stick it in one of our bags. Man still clearly needs his power trip so he now sends us to another colleague to measure our bags, they fit the measurements perfectly, and as soon as we walk through his gate and hit real security I take off the neck pillow and bathrobe and stick them back in the bag. Was satisfying to see the guy bite his tongue from the other side. Edit, thanks for all the comments telling me it was an airline employee, even more mystified that they didn't know their own policy now.